The Grand Central Clocktower loomed, its brass hands frozen at midnight, casting shadows over the silent concourse. Beneath, Sir Reginald Hawthorne lay dead, his crimson scarf twisted into a cruel noose around his throat. The marble gleamed with an eerie chill, the air thick with cigarette smoke and secrets. Hercule Poirot, summoned by urgent telegram, studied the scene with piercing eyes. A cracked pocket watch glinted nearby, its initials not the victim's. Who dared murder in this cathedral of time? A woman's scream echoed from the shadows. Ally or assassin? The game, Poirot mused, had begun. Chapter 1. The clock strikes midnight. The Grand Central Terminal stood as a monument to human ambition, its vast concourse a cathedral of marble and brass, where the ceaseless pulse of New York City thrummed even in the dead of night. At precisely midnight, the great clock tower, perched like a sentinel above the bustling station, cast its shadow over the silent tracks below. Its hands, illuminated by the soft glow of electric lights, pointed heavenward, marking the hour with an almost accusatory precision. Beneath this towering timepiece, a scene unfolded that would soon draw the attention of the world's most meticulous detective, Hercule Poirot. The air was thick with the scent of polished stone, mingled with the faint, acrid trace of cigarette smoke that lingered from the day's travelers. The terminal, usually a cacophony of footsteps, voices, and the screech of arriving trains, had fallen into an eerie hush, as though holding its breath. It was in this stillness that the body was discovered. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, a man whose wealth and influence had carved his name into the steel and stone of industry, lay crumpled at the base of the clock tower. His silk scarf, a luxurious emblem of his status, was twisted cruelly around his throat, its once vibrant crimson now a grim noose. His eyes, wide and unseeing, stared upward at the clock, save for the scarf's fatal knot. His hands, gloved in fine leather, clutched nothing, though a faint bruise marked his left wrist, as if he had struggled briefly before succumbing. Nearby, a gold pocket watch lay discarded, its face cracked, the hands frozen at 5 minutes to midnight. Poirot crouched, careful not to disturb the scene, and examined the watch. Its engraving, barely legible in the dim light, bore the initials V.L., not Sir Reginald's. A clue, perhaps, or a deliberate misdirection. Mon ami, Poirot said, rising with a grace that belied his compact frame. This watch, it does not belong to the victim, n'est-ce pas? Carver nodded. We checked his pockets. No watch on him. But this one was found just there, a few feet away. Could have been dropped by the killer in a hurry. Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind at work. Or placed, Inspector. Placed to lead us astray. The murderer, he is clever, but Hercule Poirot is more so. The terminal's vast ceiling, painted with constellations, seemed to watch over the scene, its stars indifferent to the human drama below. Poirot's gaze swept the area, noting the polished brass railings, the faint scuff marks on the marble floor, and the shadowed alcoves where the clock tower's machinery hummed softly. The killer had chosen this spot with care, a public yet secluded stage, where the grandeur of the terminal masked the intimacy of the crime. Carver's men were cordoning off the area, their voices hushed as they interviewed late-night porters and janitors. Poirot listened, his ears attuned to the rhythm of their questions. A porter had seen a woman in a black veil lingering near the clock tower at 11:30, her face obscured. Another claimed a man in a dark overcoat had argued loudly with someone near the ticket booths an hour earlier. Fragments, Poirot thought, like pieces of a shattered mirror, each reflecting a sliver of truth. He turned back to the body, noting the victim's polished shoes, the faint scent of expensive cologne still clinging to his coat. Sir Reginald Hawthorne had been a titan. If you're looking for motives, you've got a long list.
Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. And this place, this clock tower, why here? It is not merely convenience, no. It is a statement. As if in answer, a faint sound broke the silence. A woman's scream, sharp and fleeting, echoing from the shadows beyond the concourse. Carver's hand went to his revolver, but Poirot raised a hand, his expression calm, yet alert. Stay, mon ami. Let us see who emerges from the darkness. Poirot headed Vanderbilt Hall, a grand chamber adjacent to the main concourse. Poirot moved swiftly, his polished shoes clicking on the marble, Carver close behind. The hall was dimly lit, its chandeliers casting long shadows across the ornate walls. At its center stood a woman, her black veil trembling as she clutched a handkerchief. Her eyes, wide with shock, met Poirot's, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. Madame, Poirot said, his voice gentle but firm. You are distressed. Tell me, what have you seen? She hesitated, her breath catching. I heard a noise, up there by the clock tower. I thought it was nothing, but then I saw him, Reginald, dead. Her voice broke, and she swayed, as if on the verge of collapse. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was razor-sharp. And you are? Evelyn Hawthorne, she whispered. His wife. The revelation hung in the air, heavy as the fog outside. Poirot noted her delicate features, the expensive cut of her coat, the way her hands twisted the handkerchief, a gesture of grief, or perhaps of guilt. He filed the observation away, knowing the truth often hid in such small details. Madame Hawthorne, he said, you will forgive Hercule Poirot for his bluntness, but why were you here, at this hour, so near the place of your husband's death? Her eyes flickered, a shadow passing over them. I couldn't sleep. I came to meet him. He said he had business here tonight.
Concourse in a momentary darkness. In that instant, he felt the weight of the mystery settle upon him. A challenge to his intellect, a test of his resolve. The clock above ticked on, its hands moving toward 1 o'clock, as if urging him to unravel the truth before time ran out. Cliffhanger. From the shadows, a pair of eyes watched Poirot, unblinking, as a gloved hand tightened around a hidden object. Chapter 2. The Widow's Veil. The private lounge of Grand Central Terminal, tucked away from the main concourse, was a sanctuary of opulence amidst the station's ceaseless motion. Its walls, paneled in rich mahogany, gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, and the air carried the faint aroma of aged leather and expensive perfume. Hercule Poirot, his polished shoes sinking into the plush burgundy carpet, stood before Evelyn Hawthorne, the widow of the murdered Sir Reginald. Her black veil, delicate as a spider's web, did little to conceal the raw emotion in her eyes, grief, fear, or perhaps something more elusive. Poirot's mustache twitched slightly. a silent signal of his mind's relentless churn. "Madame Hawthorne," he began, his voice a measured cadence. "Hercule Poirot extends his deepest sympathies. But, if you will permit, there are questions that must be asked. The death of your husband, it is not a simple matter, no?" Evelyn sat rigidly on a velvet-upholstered chair, her gloved hands clasped tightly in her lap. The handkerchief she had clutched earlier lay crumpled on the side table, its lace edges frayed as if from nervous twisting. "I understand, Monsieur Poirot," she replied, her voice trembling yet refined, betraying her upbringing in the upper echelons of New York society. "I want justice for Reginald. Ask what you must." Poirot inclined his head, his eyes never leaving her face. "Bon. Let us begin with the night of the tragedy. You say you came to meet your husband here, at midnight. Anyone you know? A business associate, perhaps? Or someone closer?" Her hands tightened, the knuckles whitening beneath her gloves. I cannot say. Reginald kept his enemies as close as his friends. He trusted few, and even I was not privy to all his dealings." Poirot nodded, his expression inscrutable. He noted the hesitation, the way her eyes darted toward the door as if expecting an interruption or escape. The lounge, though luxurious, felt claustrophobic, its heavy drapes muffling the distant clatter of the terminal. Inspector Carver stood near the entrance, his notebook open, scribbling observations while his men combed the concourse for witnesses. Poirot, however, preferred the subtleties of human behavior to the blunt tools of police procedure. "Madame," he continued, pacing slowly before her, "you were near the clock tower when you heard a noise, oui? And then you saw your husband already dead. Tell me, what did you see in that moment? The smallest detail. It may be the key." Evelyn's breath hitched and she raised a hand to her veil as if to shield herself from the memory. "It was dark, Monsieur Poirot. The clock tower's lights cast such strange shadows. I saw him lying there, his scarf twisted so horribly. I screamed, I couldn't help it. I thought I saw movement, someone slipping into the shadows, but it was so quick. I might have imagined it." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Imagined or perhaps not. The mind, it plays tricks, but the truth, it leaves traces. Did you see this figure clearly? A man, a woman, their attire?" She shook her head, her veil trembling. "I don't know. It was just a shape, a blur. I was so shaken She broke off, her voice catching in a sob. Poirot allowed a moment of silence, his gaze softening but never wavering. Grief was a powerful mask, but he had seen it used to conceal guilt before. He changed tack, his tone lighter but no less probing. "Your husband, madame, he was a man of influence. Such men, they attract admiration." Press further. A porter entered, his cap askew, his face pale. "Inspector Carver, sir," he said, glancing nervously at Poirot. "We found something in the victim's coat. Thought you'd want to see it right away." Carver took the folded paper, his brow furrowing as he read it aloud. "Midnight. Clock tower. Settle the debt." He handed it to Poirot, who examined the note with care. The ink was fresh, the handwriting hurried but deliberate, as if written under pressure. The paper itself was fine, embossed with a faint crest, a detail that suggested wealth or status.
Poirot's fingers traced the edges, his mind racing. Was this a demand, a threat, or a lure? Madame Hawthorne, Poirot said, holding the note aloft. This was found on your husband's person. Does it mean anything to you? Her eyes widened, and for a moment she seemed to shrink into her chair. I don't know. A debt, as I said. Reginald owed many people, in business and otherwise. But this note, I've never seen it before. Poirot's gaze lingered on her, searching for the truth behind her words. The note was a cornerstone, a piece of the puzzle that connected the victim to his killer. But was Evelyn a grieving widow, a conspirator, or something else entirely? Her veil, he thought, was not just fabric but a metaphor for the secret she held. The lounge's heavy silence was broken by the sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, approaching the door. Carver's hand went to his revolver, but Poirot raised a finger, his expression calm yet alert. Let us see who comes, Inspector. The night, it seems, is full of visitors. The door creaked open, revealing a tall figure in a dark overcoat, his face partially obscured by a fedora. He paused, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Evelyn. Mrs. Hawthorne, he said, his voice low and clipped. I heard about Reginald. I came as soon as I could. Stage, each player carefully guarding their role. The note, the watch, the scream, all were threads in a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot's gray cells were already weaving them together. Cliffhanger. From the hallway beyond, the sound of footsteps resumed, retreating now, as if their owner had heard enough and slipped back into the shadows. Chapter 3. The Rival's Gambit. The office of Victor Langston overlooked the sprawling expanse of Grand Central Terminal, its wide windows framing the ceaseless dance of travelers below. The room was a study in ambition. Polished oak desk, leather-bound ledgers, and a map of New York's shipping routes pinned to the wall, marked with red lines that traced the arteries of commerce. The air carried the faint tang of cigar smoke, a testament to Langston's penchant for late-night deals. Hercule Poirot stood near the window, his small, precise frame a stark contrast to the room's ostentatious grandeur. His eyes, sharp as cut glass, studied Victor Langston, who sat behind the desk, his posture rigid, his fingers drumming an impatient rhythm. Monsieur Langston, Poirot began, his voice smooth yet edged with purpose. Hercule Poirot thanks you for your time. The death of Sir Reginald Hawthorne. It is a matter most grave, and you, I understand, were not his friend. Tell me, where were you when the clock struck midnight? Langston's eyes narrowed, but his smile was practiced, a businessman's mask. I was at the oyster bar, Monsieur Poirot, dining with a client. A dozen witnesses can confirm it. Waiters, the maitre d', even the oyster shucker. I'm not your man. Poirot's mustache twitched, a silent acknowledgement of the alibi's strength. Bon. A dozen witnesses, you say. Yet the oyster bar, it is but a short walk from the Clocktower, non? A man could slip away, perhaps, and return unnoticed. Langston's smile faltered, his fingers pausing mid-drum. You're reaching, Poirot. I had no reason to kill Reginald. We were rivals, sure, but business is— Poirot's smile was disarming, but his eyes were relentless. The point, monsieur, is that a pocket watch, bearing the same initials, was found beside the body of Sir Reginald,
A curious detail, no? Perhaps you can explain its presence. Langston leaned back, his chair creaking under his weight. A watch. I don't know anything about it. Reginald and I exchanged gifts years ago, tokens of a truce that didn't last. If that's my watch, it's because he kept it, not because I dropped it running from a murder. The explanation was plausible, yet Poirot's gray cells buzzed with skepticism. A truce gift, discarded at a crime scene, was too convenient. He turned to the window, gazing down at the terminal's concourse, where the great clock's hands now pointed to 1:30 in the morning. The station was quieter now, its usual clamor subdued, but the air hummed with secrets. Inspector Carver, standing near the door, scribbled in his notebook, his face a mask of concentration. "Inspector," Poirot said without turning, "have you the note found in Sir Reginald's pocket? I wish to examine it again." Carver produced the folded paper, its edges slightly crumpled. Poirot unfolded it with care, rereading the scrawled words. "Midnight. Clocktower. Settle the debt." The crest embossed on the paper caught his eye again. A lion rampant, a symbol of wealth and power. He glanced at Langston's desk, where a stack of stationery bore a similar crest. Another thread, perhaps, or a deliberate misdirection. "Monsieur Langston," Poirot said, holding the note aloft. "This crest, it is familiar to you, oui? Your stationery, it shares this design." Langston's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "It's common among men of our circle. Reginald used the same crest. It proves nothing." Poirot's smile widened, though it held no warmth. "Nothing, perhaps, but everything is of interest to Hercule Poirot. Tell me of this debt mentioned in the note. Sir Reginald, he owed you something, no? Money, influence, or perhaps a betrayal repaid in kind." Langston's, "Let us speak of Sir Reginald's other associates. His wife, Madame Hawthorne, mentioned a man named Thomas Reed, dismissed from Sir Reginald's employ, and a woman, Clara Beaumont. You know them, perhaps?" Langston's expression darkened at Clara's name. "Reed was a nobody, a clerk with a grudge. Reginald fired him for incompetence, and he's been whining ever since. As for Clara," he hesitated, choosing his words with care, "she's a singer, a distraction. Reginald had a weakness for pretty faces, but she's harmless. A gold digger, maybe, but not a killer." Poirot's gray cells hummed. Langston's dismissal of Clara was too quick, his tone too dismissive. Was it jealousy, or knowledge of her role in Sir Reginald's life? And Reed, his bitterness could be a motive, but was it enough to strangle a man in the heart of Grand Central? Before Poirot could press further, a knock interrupted the conversation. A young officer entered, his face flushed. "Inspector Carver, sir, we've got something. A telegram delivered to the station's office addressed to Mr. Langston. It was sent this morning." Carver took the slip of paper and read it aloud. "Confess." The single word hung in the air, sharp and accusing. Langston's face paled, his fingers tightening around the arm of his chair. "This is nonsense," he snapped, but his voice betrayed a tremor. "Someone's playing games." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Games, monsieur? Or a challenge? The sender of this telegram, they know something, perhaps, or they wish you to believe they do." Langston stood, his movements abrupt. "I've had enough of this. I've answered your questions, Poirot. I was at the oyster bar and I didn't kill Reginald. Find your murderer elsewhere." Poirot inclined his head, unruffled. "Merci, Monsieur Langston. We will speak again, I think. The truth, it has a way of revealing itself." As Langston stormed out, his overcoat billowing, Poirot turned to Carver.
The man, he is nervous, no? His alibi, it is strong, but his heart, it is not that easy.
Cliffhanger. As Poirot prepared to leave, a shadow moved outside the office window. A figure, fleeting and silent, vanishing into the terminal's labyrinthine corridors. Chapter 4. The Mistress's Secret. The cafe near Grand Central Terminal was a haven of warmth against the chill of the early morning. Its windows fogged with steam and the scent of fresh coffee mingling with the tang of cigarette smoke. Hercule Poirot sat at a small, round table in a corner, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the worn velvet cushions of the chair. Across from him was Clara Beaumont, Sir Reginald Hawthorne's mistress, her beauty as striking as the rumors suggested. Her auburn hair was pinned elegantly, her emerald dress clinging to her form, and her eyes, sharp, guarded, and faintly haunted, met his with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The cafe's dim lighting cast soft shadows, lending an air of intimacy to their meeting, but Poirot's purpose was anything but casual. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," he began, his voice smooth and precise. "Hercule Poirot is grateful for your time. The matter of Sir Reginald Hawthorne's death, it is most distressing. And you, I understand, were close to him. Perhaps you can shed light on the darkness of this crime." Clara's lips curved into a wry smile, though it lacked warmth. "Close. That's a polite way to put it, Monsieur Poirot. Reginald and I, we had an understanding. But I'm not sure how much help I can be. I was performing at the Blue Note last night, nowhere near the terminal." Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle sign of his mind at work. "A performance, oui? And yet, you were not so far away. The Blue Note, it is but a short ride from Grand Central. Tell me, what time did your performance end?" Her fingers, adorned with a single sapphire ring, tightened around her coffee cup. "Around 11, I think. I stayed late, mingling with the crowd. I didn't hear about Reginald until this morning." Poirot nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. "The cafe, she mentioned you. There is pain in her words, I think. And pain, it can lead to motives. Tell me, did you know of any enemies Sir Reginald had? Those who might wish him harm?" Clara's gaze sharpened and she set her cup down with a deliberate clink. "Reginald was a powerful man. Power makes enemies. Victor Langston, for one, his rival in the shipping business. They despised each other. And then there was that clerk, Thomas Reed, who made threats after Reginald fired him. But I don't know details. Reginald kept his business private, even from me." Poirot noted the names, already familiar from Evelyn and Langston's accounts. The web of suspects was tightening, each thread leading to new questions. He reached into his coat pocket, producing a small photograph he had obtained from Carver. A snapshot of Sir Reginald and Clara, taken at a charity gala, his arm around her waist, her smile radiant. He placed it on the table, watching her reaction. "This," he said, "was found among Sir Reginald's effects. A memento, perhaps? Or something more?" Clara's breath caught, her fingers brushing the photograph's edge. "He kept this," she murmured, her voice softening. "It was just a moment, nothing more. He liked to show me off at events, like a trophy. I didn't mind. It helped my career." Her eyes met Poirot's, a flicker of defiance in them. "If you're suggesting I had something to do with his death, you're wrong. I cared for him."
Poirot's expression remained neutral, but his mind catalogued her words. The photograph, inscribed with a lover's promise, "To my Clara, forever yours," was more than a casual keepsake. It suggested a bond that could inspire jealousy, betrayal, or worse. He tucked the photograph away, his fingers brushing the note from Sir Reginald's pocket. Its words, "Midnight, Clocktower, settle the debt," burned into his memory. "The note found on the victim," Poirot said, his tone conversational yet piercing. "It speaks of a connection, a patient, a friend, or something more. Complicated." Clara shrugged, her elegance masking unease. "I don't know. Reginald only mentioned him in passing, said he was a nuisance. You'd have to ask Morton himself." Poirot nodded, filing the information away. The cafe's gramophone switched to a slower tune, its mournful notes mirroring the mood. Clara's story held together, but there were cracks. Her hesitation, the photograph, her quick deflection to Morton. Was she protecting herself or someone else? The mistress, he knew, was often a convenient scapegoat, but her fear seemed genuine. "Tell me, mademoiselle," Poirot said, his voice softer now. "Were you ever in the clock tower? Perhaps with Sir Reginald, for a private moment?" Her cheeks flushed and she leaned forward, her voice low. "Never. That place is cold, mechanical. Reginald preferred luxury, hotels, private cars. If he was there, it wasn't with me." Poirot's gaze lingered on her, searching for the truth. Her denial was firm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of something. Guilt or merely sorrow? He decided to test her further. The scarf used to strangle him. It was his own. A cruel choice, no? Did he wear it often, this scarf? Clara's fingers trembled slightly, though she hid it by reaching for her cup. He loved that scarf. Crimson, silk, imported from Paris. He said it made him feel invincible. Her voice cracked and she looked away. Whoever used it knew him well. The observation struck Poirot like a bell. The scarf, a personal item, suggested intimacy or betrayal. His mind flashed to Evelyn, whose veiled grief seemed layered with secrets, and Langston, whose cufflinks matched the watch at the scene. Now Clara, with her photograph and evasive answers, added another layer of complexity. The cafe's cozy atmosphere felt like a facade, hiding the darkness of the crime. As Poirot prepared another question, he noticed a man across the street, partially obscured by a newspaper stand. His face was hidden, but his posture, rigid, watchful, suggested he was no idle passerby. Watcher outside. Each was a clue, a note in the symphony of deception. The terminal's clock, visible in the distance, ticked toward 3 in the morning, urging Poirot onward. Cliffhanger, as Poirot hailed a cab, a glint of metal caught his eye. A knife, discarded in an alley near the cafe, its blade stained with something dark. Chapter 5. The Employee's Grudge. The lower levels of Grand Central Terminal were a labyrinth of utility corridors, where the grandeur of the concourse above gave way to damp concrete and the hum of machinery. Hercule Poirot navigated the dimly lit passages with a fastidious grace, his polished shoes avoiding puddles as he followed a porter's directions to the maintenance bay. The air was heavy with the scent of oil and metal, the clank of tools echoing like a heartbeat in the terminal's underbelly. Here, amidst the grit and grease, Poirot sought Thomas Reed, the disgruntled former employee of Sir Reginald Hawthorne, whose name had surfaced in the whispers of suspects. Reed was found hunched over a workbench, polishing a brass fitting with a rag that had seen better days. His hands, calloused and scarred, moved with a mechanical precision, but his eyes, dark, resentful,
betrayed a man nursing a deep wound. He was lean, his overalls stained with oil, his face etched with lines that spoke of hardship. When Poirot approached, Reed's gaze flicked up, wary and hostile, as if expecting an accusation. "Monsieur Reed," Poirot began, his voice calm yet commanding. "Hercule Poirot has questions concerning the death of Sir Reginald Hawthorne. You, I understand, knew him well. Perhaps too well, no?" Reed's jaw tightened, and he set the brass fitting down with a deliberate thud. "Knew him? Yeah, I knew him. Worked for him for 10 years, slaving in his offices, keeping his books straight. Then he tossed me out like garbage. If you're here to pin his murder on me, you're wasting your time." Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind's relentless churn. He noted Reed's defensiveness, the way his hands flexed as if itching for a fight. The maintenance bay was cluttered with tools, wrenches, hammers, coils of wire, each a potential weapon, though none matched the scarf used to strangle Sir Reginald. Still, Reed's strength was evident. His hands could easily have tightened that crimson silk. "Calm yourself, monsieur." Reed's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. "I was. Had to pick up some tools I left behind when they let me go. I work odd jobs here now, cleaning, fixing. I was in the lower levels around 11, nowhere near the clock tower when he was killed." Poirot's gaze was piercing, searching for cracks in Reed's story. "And yet, monsieur, the clock tower is not so far from these corridors. A man, angry, desperate, might find his way there, perhaps to confront his former employer." Reed's face flushed, his hands clenching into fists. "I didn't kill him. I hated the man, sure, but I'm no murderer. I was down here, alone, fixing a busted pipe. Asked the night foreman, he saw me." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. The alibi was thin, reliant on a single witness, but Reed's anger seemed genuine. Not the calculated rage of a killer, but the raw fury of a man wronged. Still, Poirot knew better than to trust appearances. He stepped closer to the toolbox, his movements casual but deliberate, and peered inside. The glove was there, dark leather, stained with what looked like dried blood. His heart quickened, but he kept his voice steady. "This glove," he said, pointing without touching. "It is yours, I presume? The stain. It is most curious. Blood, perhaps?" Reed's eyes widened, and he scrambled to the toolbox, his hands shaking as he lifted the glove. "That's not. It can't be. I cut my hand last week working on a machine. Must be my blood. I swear, Poirot, I didn't touch him." Poirot's gray cells raced. The glove was a damning clue, but its discovery felt too convenient, as if placed to incriminate Reed. A red herring, perhaps, or a careless mistake by a killer? He needed to test the blood, but for now he noted Reed's panic, the way his story wavered under scrutiny. "Let us speak of Sir Reginald's enemies," Poirot said, shifting tack. "You mentioned his irregularities. Were there others who knew of these dealings? Associates, perhaps, who shared your grievances?" Reed hesitated. Evelyn's veiled grief, her trembling hands, and the scream in the night. Was she a victim or a mastermind? The maintenance bay's dim light seemed to close in, the air thick with suspicion. Poirot stepped back, his eyes lingering on the glove. "Merci, Monsieur Reed," he said, his tone polite but unyielding. "Your words, they are most illuminating. But tell me, did you ever see Sir Reginald with a pocket watch, one engraved with the initials VL?" Reed frowned, shaking his head. "A watch? No, he never carried one. Always said his schedule ran the clocks, not the other way around. Poirot's mustache twitched again. The watch found near the body was a deliberate clue, its initials pointing to Victor Langston. Yet Reed's denial suggested it was foreign to Sir Reginald's habits, a plant, perhaps, to misdirect. The note, the scarf, the glove, the watch, each was a piece of the puzzle, but the picture remained elusive. As Poirot turned to leave, a clatter echoed from the corridor. A wrench dropped by a worker, or something more sinister. Reed froze, his eyes darting to the shadows. "Who's there?" he called, his voice sharp with fear. Poirot raised a hand, his senses alert. "Calm, monsieur. The terminal, it is full of sounds. But Hercule Poirot, he listens closely." He moved toward the corridor, his steps measured, his eyes scanning the darkness. The passage was empty, but a faint scuff mark on the floor suggested recent passage. Someone had been listening, watching, perhaps waiting for an opportunity. Poirot's mind raced, connecting Reed's grudge to the broader tapestry of motives. Evelyn's pain, Langston's rivalry, Clara's secrets, and now Morton's mysterious role. "Inspector Carver," Poirot called softly, knowing the inspector was nearby, coordinating with his men. "This glove, it must be tested. And Monsieur Reed's alibi. It requires verification. The night foreman, we must speak with him." Carver nodded. In a quiet street a few blocks away, the narrow brownstone exuded an air of clinical austerity, its walls lined with medical texts and glass cabinets filled with vials and instruments. The faint scent of antiseptic mingled with the musty odor of old books, creating an atmosphere both sterile and secretive. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit slightly out of place amidst the utilitarian furnishings, stood before the doctor's cluttered desk, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. Dr. Morton, a lean man with a hawkish face and wire-rimmed spectacles, sat rigidly, his fingers interlaced as if to steady them. "Monsieur le Docteur," Poirot began, his voice a measured blend of courtesy and authority. "Hercule Poirot seeks your assistance in a matter most grave, the murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne. You were his physician, oui? Perhaps you can illuminate the shadows surrounding his death." Morton's gaze flickered, a momentary crack in his composed facade. "I was his doctor, yes," he replied, his tone clipped. "A terrible loss, but I'm not sure how I can help. I was at home last night, reviewing patient files. I hadn't seen Reginald in weeks." Poirot's mustache twitched, a silent signal of his skepticism. The office, though orderly, held an undercurrent of unease. The papers on the desk were slightly askew, as if hastily rearranged, and a drawer was ajar, revealing a glimpse of a glass vial. Poirot's gray cells hummed, sensing a man guarding secrets. He paced slowly, his polished shoes silent on the worn rug, his eyes scanning the room for clues. "Your alibi, it is noted," Poirot said, his tone deceptively light. "But let us speak of Sir Reginald. As his physician, you knew him intimately. His health, his habits, perhaps his fears. Tell me, was he a man in good health? Or did he carry burdens that might have led to his demise?" Morton adjusted his spectacles, his movements precise but betraying a hint of nervousness. Reginald was robust for his age, though he suffered from nerves, insomnia, passion, not poison. Yet poisons, they are subtle. And the doctor, he knows their ways. Tell me, did Sir Reginald ever speak of a debt owed to you? Morton's hands trembled slightly as he sat back down, his composure fraying. A debt? No, nothing of the sort. Reginald paid my fees promptly. Our relationship was professional, nothing more. The denial was too swift, and Poirot's gray cells seized upon it. Clara Beaumont had mentioned Morton pressing Sir Reginald for something, and Thomas Reed had overheard an argument about money. The doctor's name was weaving itself into the tapestry of motives, alongside Evelyn's grief, Langston's rivalry, and Clara's secrets. Poirot decided to press further, his voice soft but unyielding. You were seen, monsieur, arguing with Sir Reginald some weeks ago, he said, watching Morton's reaction. A matter of money, perhaps? Or something more personal? Morton's eyes widened, and he gripped the edge of his desk. Who told you that? It's nonsense. We had a disagreement about his treatment, nothing more. He wanted stronger sedatives, and I refused, that's all. Poirot's gaze lingered, searching for the truth behind the doctor's words. The office felt smaller now, its walls closing in as the mystery deepened. He stepped closer to the desk, noting a leather-bound ledger half hidden beneath a stack of papers. Its cover bore the same lion-rampant crest as the note found in Sir Reginald's pocket. Midnight. Clocktower. Settle the debt. A coincidence, or another thread in the web? This crest, Poirot said, pointing to the ledger. It is familiar, oui. The note found on the victim bore the same design. A debt, it mentioned. If not to you, then to whom? Morton's face tightened, and he pushed the ledger aside. That crest is common among Reginald's circle, businessmen, tycoons. It means nothing. As for the note, I know nothing about it. Poirot's smile widened, though it held no warmth. Nothing, monsieur. Yet you are nervous, necessarily that of a killer. Was Morton hiding a secret, or fleeing a threat? Poirot lingered in the office, his eyes scanning the desk. The ledger, now exposed, beckoned. He opened it carefully, revealing meticulous records of patient visits, including Sir Reginald's. The entries were routine, sedatives, checkups. But one caught his attention. A note dated 2 weeks prior stating, R.H. refuses repayment. Urgent. The handwriting matched the note from the crime scene, down to the hurried slant of the letters. Poirot's heart quickened. A debt, confirmed. But its nature remained elusive. He moved to the cabinet, examining the strychnine vial more closely. Its label was pristine, but the cap was loose, suggesting recent use. Strychnine was not the murder weapon. Sir Reginald's death was by strangulation, but its presence was a red herring, or perhaps a backup plan. Poirot's mind churned, connecting the vial to Morton's nervousness, the ledger to the note, and the doctor's name to the growing list of suspects. Outside, the city hummed with early morning traffic, but the office felt like a tomb, its secrets buried in plain sight. Poirot stepped to the window, gazing at the street below. Morton's figure was visible, hurrying toward a cab, his coat flapping like a fugitive's. Poirot's instincts flared. Something, or someone, had driven the doctor to flee. "Inspector Carver," Poirot called, knowing the inspector was waiting outside with his men. "The doctor. He is most anxious to leave. Follow him, but discreetly. And this ledger. Secure it for evidence. The truth. It begins to emerge." Carver nodded, his face grim. "He's slippery, Poirot. But we'll keep an eye on him. What about the strychnine?" "A question for later," Poirot replied. "For now, it is the debt that interests me. a debt that led Sir Reginald to the clock tower, and to his death. As Poirot left the office, the telephone rang again, its unanswered peals echoing in the empty room. The sound was fluttered from Morton's discarded coat, caught by the wind. It bore a single word in the same hurried script. Betrayed. Chapter 7. The Clock Tower's Secrets. The clock tower of Grand Central Terminal loomed like a silent sentinel, its great brass face glowing faintly in the pre-dawn gloom. The concourse below was nearly deserted, the usual throng of travelers replaced by an eerie stillness, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock's gears. Hercule Poirot stood at the base of the tower, his compact frame dwarfed by the soaring architecture, yet his presence commanded the scene. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, traced the intricate details of the crime scene, where Sir Reginald Hawthorne had met his end. The air was heavy with the scent of polished marble and machine oil, and the faint echo of a distant train added a mournful note to the atmosphere. Poirot's gray cells were alight, weaving together the threads of evidence gathered thus far. Evelyn's veiled grief, Victor Langston's calculated alibi, Clara Beaumont's guarded beauty, Thomas Reed's bitter resentment, and Dr. Elias Morton's sudden flight. Each suspect was a piece of the puzzle, but the heart of the mystery lay here, in the clock tower, where Sir Reginald's life had been snuffed out by his own crimson scarf. The note, midnight, clock tower, settle the debt, and the cracked pocket watch with Victor Langston's initials were tantalizing clues. But Poirot sensed there was more to uncover in this mechanical sanctuary. "Inspector Carver," Poirot called softly, his voice carrying in the quiet. "You have secured the area, oui? No one has disturbed the scene since last we stood here." Carver, standing near a cordoned-off section, nodded wearily. His trench coat was rumpled, his face etched with the strain of a long night. "My men have it locked down, Poirot. Nobody's been up here since we found the body. But what are you looking for? We've combed every inch." Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind's relentless churn. Every inch, gentle push, it swung open, revealing a small, dusty recess. Inside, crumpled and torn, was a letter, its fragments scattered like leaves in a storm. He gathered them carefully, his heart quickening as he pieced them together on the floor. The letter, written in a hurried hand, was incomplete, but its contents were revealing. "You will meet me. Midnight. Clock tower. No more delays. E.M." The initials sent a jolt through Poirot's mind. Evelyn Hawthorne or Elias Morton. Both had motives, both had secrets, and both were tied to the cryptic note found on Sir Reginald's body. The letter's tone suggested urgency, perhaps desperation, but its purpose remained unclear. Was it a demand for payment, a plea, or a lure to draw Sir Reginald to his death? "Mon ami," Poirot said, beckoning Carver to the alcove. "This letter, it is a piece of the puzzle, oui? The initials, they point to two of our suspects. But the question remains, why here, in this hidden place?" Carver examined the fragments, his brow furrowed. "Looks like someone tried to destroy it. Could be the killer's work, covering their tracks. But why leave it here?" Poirot's smile was faint but resolute. "Because, Inspector, the killer is clever, but not infallible. They hid this letter, thinking it's safe. But Hercule Poirot, he finds what is meant to be lost. He turned his attention to the pocket watch which Carver had retrieved from evidence. Its cracked face and engraved initials, V.L., had pointed to Victor Langston, but Reed's assertion that Sir Reginald rarely carried a watch raised doubts. Poirot examined it closely, noting the wear on its chain, the faint scratches around the clasp. It was not a casual possession, but a deliberate one. Perhaps a gift, as Langston had claimed, or a plant to misdirect. The watch's hands, frozen at 5 minutes to midnight, suggested it had been dropped during the struggle, or placed there afterward. Flight. Each suspect had a motive, but the clock tower's isolation pointed to premeditation, not impulse. As Poirot pondered, the terminal's lights flickered, casting the chamber in momentary darkness. The gears seemed to groan, their rhythm faltering, and a faint sound, a rustle, like fabric brushing against metal, came from the alcove. Poirot's senses sharpened, his hand gesturing for Carver to stay silent. He moved swiftly, his small frame agile despite the confined space, and peered into the alcove. It was empty, but a glint of metal caught his eye, a small key, half hidden in the dust, its shape suggesting it belonged to a lock within the terminal. "Inspector," Poirot said, holding up the key, it is not part of the clock's machinery. It belongs elsewhere, perhaps to a door, a safe, or a secret." Carver took the key, turning it over in his hand. "Could be from one of the terminal's offices or a locker. We'll check it against the station's records." Poirot's mind raced, connecting the key to the letter's fragments. The initials E.M. suggested a meeting arranged in advance, but the key hinted at something hidden, a secret compartment, a private meeting place, or evidence yet to be uncovered. He stepped back into the chamber, his eyes scanning the gears once more. The clock tower was a fortress of time, its secrets locked within its mechanisms, and Poirot was determined to unlock them. As he descended the staircase, the terminal's lights flickered again, plunging the concourse into shadow. A figure darted from the alcove's entrance, moving swiftly toward the main hall. Poirot's heart quickened, but the figure was too fast, vanishing into the labyrinth of corridors. The glint of metal in their hand, a knife, a gun, or something else, lingered in Poirot's memory, a new clue in the ever-deepening mystery. "Inspector," Poirot said, his voice urgent but controlled. "We must find this figure. They know the clock tower's secrets, and perhaps those of echoed from the shadows. The debt is paid," followed by the sound of retreating footsteps, vanishing into the terminal's depths. Chapter 8. The Web Tightens. The grand concourse of Grand Central Terminal stretched before Hercule Poirot like a stage, its vast marble expanse illuminated by the soft glow of chandeliers, and the starlit ceiling overhead, painted with constellations that seemed to watch the unfolding drama with celestial indifference. The hour was nearing 6 in the morning, and the terminal, though quieter than its daytime bustle, hummed with a restless energy. Poirot stood at the center of the concourse, his compact frame commanding despite the grandeur around him. Before him, gathered in a tense semicircle, were the suspects. Evelyn Hawthorne, her black veil trembling. Victor Langston, his sharp features set in defiance. Clara Beaumont, her beauty shadowed by unease. Thomas Reed, his calloused hands clenched. and Dr. Elias Morton, his hawkish face pale after being apprehended by Carver's men. The air was thick with anticipation, each suspect a thread in the intricate web of Sir Reginald Hawthorne's murder. "Monsieur et mesdames," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the hushed murmurs of the gathered police officers. "Hercule Poirot has summoned you here to unravel the mystery of Sir Reginald Hawthorne's death. In this cathedral of time, beneath the great clock, a crime was committed. A man strangled by his own scarf, a note in his pocket speaking of a debt, a watch not his own at his side. The truth, it is close, but it requires your cooperation to be revealed." Evelyn's veil slipped slightly, revealing a bruise on her cheek, a mark Poirot had noted earlier, hidden during their first meeting. Her eyes, red-rimmed, darted between the others, as if seeking an ally or an escape. Langston stood tall, his gold cufflinks glinting, his alibi of dining at the oyster bar still unverified. Clara's fingers twisted a handkerchief, her emerald dress a stark contrast to the pallor of her face. Reed's posture was rigid, his gaze fixed on the floor, while more debt etched in hurried ink. "This note, it speaks of a debt. Madame Hawthorne, you mentioned your husband's enemies. Monsieur Langston, you spoke of rivalry. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you hinted at secrets. Monsieur Reed, you revealed a grudge. And, Dr. Morton, your ledger suggests a financial dispute. Each of you are tied to this debt, no?" The suspects shifted uneasily, their glances darting like moths around a flame. Evelyn spoke first, her voice trembling.
Reginald owed many people, Monsieur Poirot. Businessmen, rivals. I don't know specifics, but I had nothing to do with his death."
Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was relentless. "Madame, your bruise, it tells a story. Sir Reginald, he was not a gentle husband, I think. Did his cruelty drive you to act, perhaps in desperation?" Evelyn's hand flew to her cheek, her veil falling further.
He could be harsh, yes, but I loved him, despite everything. I was in the terminal to meet him, not to harm him."
Poirot nodded, turning to Clara. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, the photograph found among Sir Reginald's effects, a lover's promise inscribed upon it. You were more than a singer to him, Did jealousy, or perhaps betrayal, lead you to the clock tower?"
Clara's eyes flashed, her voice sharp. "I cared for Reginald, but I didn't kill him. That photograph was a keepsake, nothing more. I was at the Blue Note, singing when he died."
Poirot's mustache twitched. "And yet, mademoiselle, you mentioned Dr. Morton, a man who pressed Sir Reginald for something. What did you know of their dealings?"
Clara hesitated, her fingers tightening on her handkerchief. "Only that Reginald complained about him once, said he was demanding too much. I thought it was about medical bills."
Poirot turned to Morton, whose spectacles glinted nervously. "Monsieur le Docteur, your ledger records a debt, a refusal by its fragments pieced together. This letter, signed E.M., speaks of a meeting at midnight. Evelyn or Elias, it points to one of you. And the key found in the alcove, perhaps it unlocks a truth yet hidden."
The suspects exchanged glances, their unease palpable. Poirot's mind raced, connecting the clues. The watch, a possible frame for Langston. The note and letter hinting at a debt. The scarf, a personal weapon. The glove, a potential red herring. The strychnine, a distraction. And the key, a mystery yet to be solved. The bruise on Evelyn's cheek suggested a motive born of pain, while Morton's flight and ledger pointed to desperation. Clara's photograph and Reed's grudge added layers of betrayal and vengeance, and Langston's rivalry was a thread of ambition. As Poirot prepared to press further, a gunshot shattered the silence, echoing across the concourse. The suspects flinched, Carver's men drawing their weapons, but no one was harmed. The sound came from the direction of the Vanderbilt Hall, a warning shot or a diversion. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his senses alert. "Remain here," he instructed the suspects, gesturing to Carver. "Inspector, secure the hall. The killer, they are close, and they grow reckless." Carver nodded, barking orders to his men, who fanned out toward the hall. Poirot turned back to the suspects, his voice calm but commanding. "The gunshot, it is a message, no? Someone wishes to disrupt Hercule Poirot's pursuit of the truth. But the truth, it cannot be silenced." Evelyn's veil trembled, and she clutched her locket, its surface gleaming. Langston's hand strayed to his cufflinks, as if to reassure himself of their presence. Clara's eyes darted to the shadows, while Reed's fists remained clenched, his anger barely contained. Morton adjusted his spectacles, his face a mask of unease. Poirot's gray cells worked tirelessly, weaving the clues into a coherent pattern. The gunshot was no accident. It was a calculated act, perhaps to scare the suspects into silence or to draw attention away from the clock tower. The letter game, but it had also revealed the killer's desperation. The truth was near, but one final piece remained elusive. Cliffhanger. As Carver's men returned, reporting no shooter found, a faint metallic clink echoed from the clock tower's staircase, as if someone had dropped a small object in their haste to flee. Chapter 9. The Final Clue. The grand concourse of Grand Central Terminal was a cavern of echoes, its marble expanse amplifying the chaos that followed the gunshot's sharp report. The starlit ceiling above seemed to pulse with the tension, as if the constellations themselves were holding their breath. Hercule Poirot stood at the heart of the scene, his compact frame a beacon of calm amidst the flurry of Inspector Carver's men, who had returned from Vanderbilt Hall empty-handed, their faces grim with frustration. The suspects, Evelyn Hawthorne, Victor Langston, Clara Beaumont, Thomas Reed, and Dr. Elias Morton, remained in their uneasy semicircle, each face a mask of fear, defiance, or calculation. The clock above ticked toward 7:30 in the morning, its relentless rhythm urging Poirot to close the net around the killer. The gunshot had been a warning, not a weapon, Poirot deduced, intended to scatter the suspects or derail his inquiry. Yet it had the opposite effect, sharpening his focus. The metallic clink from the clock tower's staircase, heard as Carver's men returned, lingered in his mind. A small but significant clue, suggesting the killer was still near, their desperation growing. Poirot's gray cells hummed, weaving together the threads of evidence. The crimson scarf, the cryptic note, the cracked pocket watch, the blood-stained glove, the strychnine vial, the torn letter, and the mysterious key. Each was a note in a discordant symphony, and now the final melody was within reach. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice steady and resonant. "The events of this night have brought us closer to the truth. A gunshot, a fleeting shadow, a sound from the clock tower. All are signs that the killer grows anxious. Hercule Poirot, he sees through the shadows, and the truth, it will not." Carver, who stood nearby, his notebook open. "Inspector, have your men identified the key's purpose?" Carver nodded, his voice gruff.
It fits a locker in the terminal's baggage claim, Poirot. We're checking it now, but it's a busy area. Could take time. Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind's relentless churn. A locker suggested hidden evidence, a weapon, documents, or something more personal. He filed the information away, turning back to the suspects. Let us revisit the note found on Sir Reginald. Midnight. Clocktower. Settle the debt. This debt. It is the heart of the mystery. Madame Hawthorne, you spoke of your husband's enemies. Monsieur Langston, you admitted to rivalry. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you hinted at secrets. Monsieur Reed, your grudge is clear. And Dr. Morton, your ledger confirms a financial dispute. But whose debt drove them to murder? Morton's face flushed, his voice sharp. I told you, Poirot, my dispute with Reginald was a loan, a personal matter. I didn't kill him. Poirot's gaze shifted to Evelyn, whose locket gleamed in the chandelier's light. Madame, your bruise. It speaks of a marriage marked by cruelty. Did Sir Reginald's actions push you to a breaking point? Evelyn's hand flew to her locket, her voice breaking. He was not a kind man, Monsieur Poirot. But I didn't harm him. I came to the terminal to meet him as he asked. I wanted to save our marriage, not end his life. Poirot's eyes narrowed, noting the locket's prominence. That locket, madame. It is dear to you, nom. May I see it? Evelyn hesitated, her fingers tightening around the silver oval. Reluctantly, she unclasped it and handed it to Poirot, her veil slipping to reveal tear-streaked cheeks. He opened the locket, revealing a tiny photograph of a young girl and an inscription. For my Evelyn, never forget. The words were innocuous, but the weight of Evelyn's reaction suggested a deeper significance. This inscription, Poirot said, his tone gentle but probing. It is personal, we. Carver's men returned, one holding the small leather satchel retrieved from a locker. Carver opened it, revealing a bundle of letters, a photograph of Sir Reginald with Clara, and a ledger page torn from Morton's book, detailing a loan of $10,000, marked unpaid. Poirot's eyes gleamed. This was the debt, or part of it. Mon Dieu, he murmured, examining the letters. They were love letters from Sir Reginald to Clara, passionate but laced with promises of secrecy. The ledger page confirmed Morton's claim of a loan, but its presence in the locker suggested someone had hidden it deliberately. Poirot's mind churned, the pieces aligning. Before he could speak, Evelyn collapsed, her locket slipping from her fingers to the marble floor. The suspects gasped, and Carver rushed to her side. But Poirot's attention was drawn to the locket, now open, revealing a second inscription on its inner lid. Forgive me, E. The words, etched in a hurried hand, sent a jolt through him. Was this Sir Reginald's remorse, or another's plea? Madame, Poirot exclaimed, kneeling beside her. What does this mean? Forgive me, E. Who wrote these words? Evelyn's eyes fluttered open, her voice a whisper. Reginald. He gave it to me years ago, after our daughter. I kept it to remember her, not him. Poirot's gray cells worked furiously. The locket, the bruise, the scarf, all pointed to Evelyn's pain, but also to her presence at the clock tower. The letters in the satchel confirmed Clara's relationship, and the ledger page tied Morton to the debt. The watch and glove were likely red herrings, but the letter from the alcove and the key were pivotal. The gunshot, the clink, the fleeing figure, all suggested the killer was still manipulating the scene. Inspector, Poirot said, rising. Secure these items. The satchel. It is a treasure trove, but it is not the final answer. The killer. They are among us, and they grow careless. The suspects stood frozen, their faces satchel's secrets, the alcove's letter. All were threads in a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot was poised to unravel it. Listen. As Carver's men ascended the clock tower stairs, a shadow flickered in the distance, and a faint whisper carried on the air. It's too late. Chapter 10. The Unveiling. The grand concourse of Grand Central Terminal shimmered under the soft glow of its chandeliers, the painted constellations above bearing witness to the final act of a deadly drama. Hercule Poirot stood at the heart of the vast marble expanse, his small, precise figure radiating authority as he faced the assembled suspects. Evelyn Hawthorne, her veil now discarded, her face pale and bruised. Victor Langston, his sharp features taut with defiance. Clara Beaumont, her beauty shadowed by fear. Thomas Reed, his calloused hands trembling with suppressed rage. And Dr. Elias Morton, his spectacles glinting with nervous anticipation. The great clock above ticked toward 8:30 in the morning, its relentless rhythm a reminder that time had run out for the killer's deception. Poirot's gray cells, honed by hours of relentless deduction, were ready to unveil the truth behind Sir Reginald Hawthorne's murder. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the tense silence. Hercule Poirot has gathered you here to reveal the truth of a crime most foul. Sir Reginald Hawthorne was strangled in the clock tower, his own crimson scarf the weapon, a note in his pocket speaking of a debt, a cracked watch at his side, a letter hidden in an alcove, a key, a glove, a locket, all pieces of a puzzle that now forms a clear picture. The killer stands among you, and the truth, it will no longer hide. The suspects stood frozen, their faces a gallery of emotions, fear, guilt, defiance. Inspector Carver, stationed near the clock tower's entrance with his men, watched intently, his notebook poised for the final revelation. The concourse, though nearly empty, felt alive with anticipation, as if Poirot's gaze softened, but his voice was unyielding. Madame, your bruise, your presence at the clock tower, your locket, they paint a picture of a woman wronged. Let us reconstruct the night of the murder, Sir Reginald was lured to the clock tower, expecting to settle a debt. The scarf, so personal, suggests a killer who knew him intimately. The letter, hidden in the alcove, confirms a planned meeting. The key, it unlocked a satchel of secrets, love letters, a ledger page, proof of a debt, but whose hand tightened that scarf? He turned to Langston, whose cufflinks glinted accusingly. Monsieur Langston, your watch was found at the scene, a gift you claim was given years ago. Your alibi at the oyster bar is strong, yet your rivalry with Sir Reginald was fierce. Did you seek to eliminate him? To claim his empire? Langston's jaw clenched, his voice sharp. I told you, Poirot, I was dining. That watch was Reginald's to keep or lose. I didn't need to kill him to win. Poirot nodded, his eyes shifting to Clara. Mademoiselle Beaumont, your photograph, inscribed with love, suggests a motive of jealousy or betrayal. Did Sir Reginald's promises falter, driving you to act? Clara's lips trembled, but her voice was firm. I loved him, Monsieur Poirot, but I was at the Blue Note. I had no reason to harm him. Poirot's gaze moved to Reed, whose fists were still clenched. Monsieur Reed, your grudge was clear, your glove stained with blood. Yet the blood was yours, a convenient distraction, perhaps. Reed's eyes blazed. I hated him, but I didn't kill him. I was in the lower levels fixing a pipe. Check with the foreman. Poirot turned to Morton, whose spectacles slipped slightly. Dr. Morton, your ledger speaks of a loan, your strychnine of darker possibilities. Your flight from your office suggests guilt, no? Morton's voice was strained. The loan was personal, Poirot. I argued with Reginald, but I didn't. Relentless. The scarf, madam, was his. But you knew it well. You arranged the meeting, using the note to lure him to the clock tower. The debt was not financial, but emotional. A debt of love, of loyalty, unpaid after years of pain. You strangled him, driven by years of abuse, and planted the watch to implicate Monsieur Langston, whose rivalry was known to all. Evelyn's knees buckled and she sank to the floor, sobbing. I couldn't bear it anymore. He was a monster, Monsieur Poirot. He blamed me for our daughter's death, struck me, betrayed me with Clara. I wrote the note, yes, to confront him, to demand he stop. But when he laughed, mocked me, I snapped. I took his scarf and I didn't mean to kill him. The confession hung in the air, a heavy truth that silenced the concourse. Carver stepped forward, his men moving to flank Evelyn, but Poirot raised a hand, his expression somber. Madame, the truth, it is painful, but it is necessary. The watch, the glove, the strychnine. These were distractions, created by your desperation to shift blame. The letter, the locket, the scarf, they tell your story. Langston's shoulders slumped, relief mingling with shock. Clara's eyes filled with tears, her love for Sir Reginald now a bittersweet memory. Reed's fists unclenched, his anger giving way to exhaustion. Morton adjusted his spectacles, his fear replaced by resignation. The web of suspicion had unraveled, leaving Evelyn at its center. Poirot turned to Carver, his voice low. Inspector, Madame Hawthorne must face justice, but with understanding. Her crime was born of pain, not malice. Carver nodded, signaling his men to escort Evelyn gently. As she was led away, her sobs echoed through the concourse, a haunting counterpoint to the clock's steady ticking. The other suspects dispersed, their roles in the drama concluded.